welcome to my channel. My name is Tiffany Hillcook. I run a spiritual practice called The Healing Hill, and if you're watching this, then you are somehow we align on a frequency level, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your energy in the form of light with me. Today's episode, I have been having so many ideas rumbling around inside of my head these past few months, and really exciting and yummy ideas. Definitely it's connected to my psychic gift and also to my purpose in this life that I planned in this incarnation, because I've incarnated thousands of times as a human, and so this isn't my first rodeo. I also started a new job earlier this year, and it's part-time. It's in the evenings because I just am not quite, my business isn't quite, financially anyway, enough to support me. And something that I know to be true is if we don't have something, then we're not quite ready for it yet. If you're not in a relationship, you're not ready for one yet. Whatever it is that you feel that you are lacking, if you do not have it, it's because you're not ready for it yet. And so I started a part-time job, and I'm waiting tables as a server at a steakhouse, a local steakhouse. So I just work there part-time. And then I also started going to the gym. I actually haven't given this episode a title just yet, so and we could go a variety of different ways, but I'm just going to continue to channel what's being given to me. I spent 37 years of my life, not always consciously, but subconsciously, hating my body. And comparing my body, starving my body, binging my body, withholding things from it, emotionally and psychologically and spiritually detaching myself from my body, speaking very, very mean things to my body, about my body, and I know where that comes from. Today I do. I know where that comes from. And the beauty of knowing the origin of something is that you can give it back to where it came from. There's a really great therapy that's called Cutting the Ties That Bind. I will link in the description below the website address for Michael Sheridan. He has been a huge spiritual leader in my life, specifically connected to dream work, the messages, the language, and discerning the language of our dreams. I took a channeling course from him as well. And I also, as part of one of the dream courses, I did a 6-week therapy called Cutting the Ties That Bind, that essentially expedites the balance of energy. When we are born into this life, we're born into this life whole. And I say that with a little asterisk, because that isn't entirely true. Okay, well, I'm just going to continue with this thought, and then I'm going to potentially loop back around if that's how Spirit is going to have me do it. By the way, when I'm communicating, when I am speaking words out of my mouth, they're not my words. I am being guided every step of this way by I was going to say my spirit team, but they're saying our spirit team. So it's like, when I was going through my awakening, a spiritual awakening in 2020, I would stumble onto different articles. I still remember this one woman's website. I don't remember it, but I don't remember the web address, but I remember stumbling upon it, and that's when I learned about something called a twin flame. And then subsequently, like a couple of weeks later, I met my twin flame. And so, we're always being guided by our higher selves, whether we're conscious of it or not. Sometimes we just do action after action, and then before you know it, your head's on a pillow, and then the next morning you're waking up and then we're just in repeat. Or you can be more conscious about the choices that you're making and then really connect the consequence of that choice, because there's no such thing as a good choice or a bad choice. Even myself, I catch myself, great job, great choice. It's like, no, it's just a choice, and as a result there's going to be some sort of consequence or result that leads you to another choice, and blah, 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 blah. I just lost my train of thought. My body. So cutting the ties that bind. So I will put below a link to Michael's website. Specifically, when you do the course with Michael, and I'm not getting paid to do this, to promote his work, but it quite literally altered the direction of my life, and so potentially it could do that for you too. But when you do it with Michael, you meet with someone once a week, and there's a facilitator, let's put it that way. The website that I'm going to share with you, there is no facilitator outside of yourself, and so it's a little bit of a different experience. But I did it before signing up for one of Michael's courses. I did it myself, and I also did 2 cutting the ties that bind therapies with Michael as well. And so the nice thing is, when you're doing it yourself, you don't necessarily have an unattached observation, a purview of the healing that's transpiring, versus when you do it with Michael or one of his team members. They're going to be analyzing your dreams and being able to see, like, hey, this therapy is working because this is the way in which men are showing up in your dreams, or this is the way in which women are showing up, and maybe they're really helpful in your dreams now, and before they weren't helpful. So there's, let's just say, if you have the money, obviously, I would encourage you, if you feel guided to it, to check out Michael and his team. At any rate, once you can discern where that energy is coming from, you can give it back. So my mother, I do not know today, because I cut off a majority of my family in 2020. During my awakening, I saw the abuse, and what would it be? It wasn't even that it was so toxic. It was just mean to be around. And so I don't know. So why I preface that is, I'm going to speak some things that I don't know if that's the same today, because I don't know who my mother is today. I can tell you who she was a few years ago, and she, since the moment that I have conscious memories, was either starving herself, or she was binging, preparing for a diet, eating, and I'm so full, because she would eat anything in sight. She's always had issues with her stomach. And what I mean by that is, like, whether it be IBS, actually that's a diagnosis. I'm going to talk about the actual physical manifestations. A lot of issues with her elimination and digestive system. Going to the doctor, I'd say since I knew, 20 or 30 times, with 0 diagnoses. Now, there are those things happening to her 100%, but is it on an energetic, psychological level that is manifesting physically? 100%. So, you know what this episode is going to be about, is starting something new. Okay, these are some of the things that your psychological, emotional state, even, pathologically, some things could be happening as well. But once I was able to discern that as a baby, you have 0 idea of what food is good for you, of being called fat, or being told that your sister can have seconds but you can't have seconds because you have your Mamie M's body shape and your sister has Grandma Hill's body shape. Weight had value. Your size had value, and the goal was always thinner. You were never thin enough. And now when I see certain women's bodies, which I don't know, that like everybody's built differently, you know, some people just are naturally really thin. Doesn't even mean that they're physically, you know, you can be a fat, skinny person, have a lot of issues with, you know, plaque buildup or things with your arteries, and you could still be a very thin person and have really high, bad, you know, fat cell counts. I don't know, is it called HCLs or something like that? Anyways, and so now when I see super thin women, I used to want to be them so terribly bad. And now it's like I love my body so dang much. I don't want anybody's body but my own. But when I start to have how my dialogue goes with my weight is sometimes when I eat, let's say I have a couple of meals that, you know, maybe I have a burger and fries, or I eat a milkshake, or maybe I didn't physically move my body that day. The old me would have obsessed about what I needed to do to offset what I just did. And I'll give an example. It would be like, okay, well, I ate this milkshake. I just need to walk 8 miles tomorrow. This really was, honest to God, these were conversations that I would have. I just need to walk 8 miles tomorrow. That's 800 calories, and then I can eat this, and then we're just even. Then I wouldn't walk the 8 miles. Well, now I just need to walk 16 miles. Well, I can walk about 4 miles an hour, so that's just walking for 4 hours. I can walk for 4 hours. It's my day off. I can absolutely do that. I'd be a lazy piece of shit if I couldn't fucking do that. When I speak this, do you hear how ridiculous it sounds? That I'm going to walk 16 miles for allowing myself to have a milkshake? It's a milkshake. Why am I giving why am I putting such negative energy towards an action that's already transpired? It's not even in the current moment. And so, once you start to identify the thoughts, because that's the consciousness, that's the ability, that is awareness. And I'm going to give, I don't know if I've said this recently in a video, but if I have, here's another sprinkling of it. There's a yogi by the name of Sadhguru, and man, I think I'm going to make a little list here because I got some feedback which was helpful, that sometimes if I talk about something, it's nice to have a link to it. So again, I don't know what I'm going to say in these videos, but I do want to at least provide resources for people if they feel so inclined. So, but there's a yogi by the name of Sadhguru, and one day, and he's a great storyteller from my perspective. He's funny. And one day he's talking, he goes, and he's got a really thick Indian accent. He's like, if you go 3 days without brushing your teeth, you will not know. You will not notice, but everybody in the room will notice. And that, my dear friend, is called consciousness. We are not conscious of the ways in which we show up until one day we are. And then it's impossible not to see. So if you start to notice, normally it will be connected to a feeling first. You'll have a feeling of despair, a pit in your stomach, maybe your heart hurts, maybe there's an anxiety or like, for me, I actually get palpable pains around my heart space, and I've been able to discern them connected to guilt. When I feel guilt, or I allow myself to feel the guilt that someone else is feeling, because I meet with people, and if I want to take on their if I want to feel what they're feeling, I can. There's a problem with that though, because sometimes that energy takes a while for it to leave me, because I resonate obviously at the same frequency as guilt. I know what that feels like. So for myself, I literally, the thoughts manifest in physical pain. So maybe you don't realize the thoughts first, but there's pain associated to your existence of life. It should not hurt to be alive. It should not hurt to exist. If it does, and let's say you even have some sort of health issue, that's an imbalance. And have I experienced health things? Will I experience them again? 100% is plausible, but just know that there is some sort of imbalance energetically. That's why that's manifesting for you. You shouldn't have to exist in pain. I get sometimes it's part of your life's purpose. You need to experience the pain to have more, humility for those experiencing, something physically going on with their health when before you were like they're faking it. Again, everybody's got a different life experience that they come here to have. But once you start to acknowledge that something is out of alignment, then that's where the work can begin. That's where you can enter consciousness through. And if you're like, what does that mean? Enter consciousness through, then enter there. If you don't know what consciousness means, then enter there. If you're aware that you have a physical pain, enter there. If you're aware that you have these thoughts, enter consciousness through there. Where do these thoughts come from? Why do I have these thoughts? Are these thoughts helpful? Are these thoughts hurtful? Do I want to keep these thoughts? Where did I first hear these thoughts? Oh, my mom says these things. So this energy is not mine. This energy actually belongs to my mother. And so I'm going to give it back. Now, what this episode I've come to discern is about is starting new things. And specifically, I started a new job earlier this year, and then I also started going to the gym, which connects body and self-love, because I have never been more in love with my body than I am today. And it's been, I don't know, 3 months. I started going in May. June, July, August. We're almost into month 4. And I love it. I feel so good when I get done. And sometimes I go for 20 minutes, sometimes I go for 40. That's about the extent of it. And I lift weights. And when someone's like, well, what's your regimen? It's like, I just go there and do it. I'm like, oh, that machine looks interesting. I'll try that one today. Because I was a dancer growing up. I was on the drill team in high school. So like actually lifting weights was not something that was necessarily something I did, but it is rather intuitive. Your body will tell you how it wants to move and how it wants to be challenged. But so now when I start to have dialogue around something negative, I go, that's my mother speaking. That's not me. That's my mother speaking. And I'm going to release that energy back to her. She can have that energy again. I do not wish to hold on to this energy anymore. It served its purpose. It kept me alive. It kept me, literally to this moment. And I release you. And you go to God. And I give so much thanks to everything that you provided in my life. But what I will say about starting something new is that I've been wanting to make some videos for probably a couple of months, but when I go to do it, something just didn't quite feel right. And so I gave myself permission to not make the videos, to just to move forward with some other action or activity. And something that I came to realize is that when, you start a new job or you start a new activity, like for me going to the gym, it's not impossible to think that something else that you are currently giving energy to is going to get a little bit neglected. There's going to be a little bit of less energy being oriented towards other things that you used to do, because, we do live in a dimensional space in which time is a reality. And so, if you're doing, for me, I work a part-time job that is 5 hours in the evening. That's a little bit more than a sixth of your day that is now going to be, that was occupied with something else. I don't even know what I was doing before. I was doing something else. And so give yourself permission and grace during that time period, because you're putting on like a new set of clothes. You're trying on something new. And so nothing is ever as it was before. And so, for me, I was, making videos before, and now I had to figure out a different time or even energetically, I didn't have the energy to share with you all. And so I had to give myself permission to be oriented energetically towards something else, because over these past few months, I could have been literally every day, albeit I wasn't making videos, I could have been having a conversation that was like, you've abandoned, and mind you, were there times that this came up? 100%. But I could meet this dialogue right where it was at and say, ego, I got you. There is no problem. We are right where we're supposed to be. And hey, mama's got you. So there's nothing that if you're worried at all, we can give that word to the angels and they'll transmute that into something positive. But so in those moments, there would be times where it's like, people are relying on you, Tiffany. Um, Here's the thing. I can't be responsible for anybody. So any type of excuse or dialogue that's going to come up, it isn't even living in reality. It's a fear-based dialogue that your ego has used because it perceives some sort of fear. But it was like, people are going to forget about you. What would be another one that, people are relying on you. You've abandoned people. But I just know that that's simply not the truth. I just know that that's simply not the truth. So when you're trying something new, know that something that you have already put your energy towards is going to have a little less energy towards it. And that's okay, because, you have to allow yourself to experience different things, because let's say you do try something and you go, you know what, that actually wasn't for me. It's cool. Then and you move forward. Something else that happens when you're trying something new is you're really going to go up against your identity. This illusion of self, this, maybe you've heard like imposter syndrome. That's a common one, especially starting a new job. Like I'm waiting tables. I waited tables through college. I've done that before. I've never done fine dining. I've never worked at this place in particular. It's a steakhouse. I eat meat, but I don't know where all the cuts come from, and what a dry aged burger is, or a dry aged steak, or an umami ketchup. Some sort of ketchup. That, again, all of this is learnable, but just know that when you're starting something new, you're gonna have. So this is definitely gonna play into your identity. Am I worthy? Am I smart? All of these pockets where your ego lives. I always envision my ego as a unicorn, because my ego wants to be just this beautiful, like, it's just, how do I describe my ego? Tender and sensitive and afraid sometimes. What else? But beautiful and majestic. A great teacher. It's the best teacher I'll ever have is my own ego. It teaches me so much about myself and ways in which I abandon myself or defend myself or feel the need to do whatever it is. So just know that when you're starting something new, there's going to be potentially ways in which your ego tells your identity of yourself that something's wrong, something's lacking. And just know that that's just not the truth. It's just part of the cycle of starting something new, or I would also say quitting something or finishing something. The beauty is, it's like, I intend to do an episode on grief and how, or the feeling or reality of loss. But just know that for myself, like, the more you know yourself, the more you say, I remember who I am, the quicker that transition will be. And you're not going to linger in that identity crisis for months. It's going to be like maybe 10 or 15 minutes a day for a week. You'll have these ideas or thoughts that come up, which where I believe those come from, or I know that those come from, is the collective conscious. Every single entity or being that is vibrating at that frequency, you're going to tap into those thoughts. So one thing that I know to do is I elevate myself. When I start to notice like I have anxiety, because I just don't have it that often. So when I have it, it's like a very yucky feeling for me. But it's also, when I say yucky, it's teaching. It's an alert. It's an alert to something. But I can go, ooh, I literally imagine, and I've never flown a plane, but I maybe one day I'll get my pilot's license. That's been a dream for some reason. I don't know why. But I literally just imagine, I imagine myself elevating my frequency. And all of a sudden it goes from a really echoous, boisterous, noisy room with all of these really not nice things to peace. And it's like I can see above the clouds. It's really beautiful and it's very helpful. Um, Also, when you start something new, like I said, allow yourself to give yourself permission to let something else potentially go by the wayside. Or maybe you need to start asking for some more help. Let's say you're always the one that does the laundry, or you're always the one that does the grocery shopping. These are more, physical things. They're less connected to our spirituality because it's attached to material things, but also necessary. And so let's say you need to order your groceries online and then you just go pick them up instead of grocery shopping, or you need to ask for help from someone. Say, "Hey babe," or whomever, I used to do this and I'm a little bit pinched for time. Can you do this for the foreseeable future? Um, we've got to involve people into our lives. It may be something as simple as, can I bend your ear a little bit? I've got some things going on between my ears and I just need to speak this out so that, you can get the energy flowing again. Isn't it so beautiful once you have a conversation with someone that you feel you can be vulnerable with, all of a sudden these problems that you perceived problems, they're not that big of a deal anymore. Sometimes it's just speaking it into existence allows you to realize how silly they are. So, but let's see here, what else? Also, let's say you start something new and it doesn't feel right. Let's say you do not even have the words for it, but you've got a pit in your stomach, then that decision was one that you learned isn't going to be for you, and you've got to go pivot and make another choice. You've got to give yourself permission to change your mind. Once you start something, it doesn't mean that you're committed forever. I know some personality types, like if we're talking about the Enneagram, there's some personality types that for whatever reason, everyone will stick to something for some reason. Something to lose, something to prove, fear, it's the right thing to do. I don't want to appear like a quitter. Whatever the story is, you don't live your life for anybody else. So fuck them. You got to do what's good for you. They're like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Not necessarily. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but one of my neighbors is clanking outside doing something. Let's see here. What else would happen when starting something new? Oh, let's just know too that when you start something new, that relationships that you currently have may alter a little bit, may change a little bit. Let's say you start a new job and one of your really dear friends was at your old job. That relationship in the next few months might disintegrate entirely. Again, no harm, no foul, but it was time for you to move on. And so just know that your relationships could alter too. And if anybody is ever making you feel a certain kind of way that you don't like, get curious. Just because somebody is sharing with you that they feel, that you're not spending enough time with them, or that you're spending less time with them, that's their truth. You've got to hear them out. But it also may be something that is not feasible for you to fulfill anymore on their end. And so you've got to create some new boundaries. And that new boundary may be sayonara, or it may be, hey, once the third Thursday of every month, we're going to go for drinks. Or the second Tuesday of every month, our kids are going to get together. Whatever that is, you can constantly be reorganizing your commitments and your boundaries with one another. But just know that can alter too. And for some reason, this idea that I'm just getting is like, let's say you're in a relationship that's already not healthy, a romantic relationship, and then you start to go to the gym and start taking care of yourself. They could feel really jealous that they're going to lose you or something. So it's just important to communicate your feelings, and even though that feeling didn't generate from you, you're going to feel that. And so like, I guess that what I'm trying to say is just being open and communicative is going to be really important when you're starting something new. I was going to go into like goal setting. I don't think it's really important to set goals to start when you start something new, personally. I think that that can alter the reason why you're doing something, the intention behind it. And so, the motivation should come from within and not because you're like working towards something. Um, Too often when I used to work towards something, I found that the goal wasn't mine to begin with. It was like connected to my image, or connected to the image that I wanted to portray for my mother or for my boss, maybe a partner in a relationship. And so I don't think that that's necessarily important. Now, is it important to celebrate yourself, honor yourself, give value to your emotions, acknowledge, how far you've come? 100%. Um, but it also just doesn't define you. The good things and the bad things that happen to you in life don't define who you really are. You could have the world in your oyster and then you lose the oyster. That doesn't mean that you're a loser. Or you could, manifest something overnight and be, and, you know, appear to be successful and you could be miserable. It's all subjective. So, what I would say is when starting something new, is be kind to yourself. Allow the inspiration to come from within. It should feel good when you're doing something new. There should be some sort of like excitement, some yummy energy, almost childlike energy. Like I imagine myself sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, cross-legged, and just like almost being like a 5 or 7 year old. There's this because there's a lot of failure when you start something new. There was this guy I worked with that used to say fail stood for a first attempt in learning, and I like that. So just know that also when you start something new that you're not going to be great at it, even if you've done it before. Like let's say you used to go to the gym all the time, but then you took a year off. Do you think that you're going to have the same strength, the same lung capacity that you did a year ago? No. So unreasonable. So why do we have these bizarre expectations of ourselves? So unnecessary. So let it go and then go, who had an unrealistic expectation of me? Oh, it was my mom. It was my dad. It was my stepfather. It was my grandmother. Cool. She can have that energy back. They can have that energy back. It's not mine. I don't want it. It served its purpose. And when I say it served its purpose, I had that energy. Who knows exactly when I held on to it, but I've had it for 25 years. It did something for me. I have gratitude for it, but I release it. Um, Anything else? Um, I'd love to hear what new things that you're trying or what new things that you're connecting with. That's always like, again, when somebody says they're trying something new, I'm like, I innately get really excited about it. Anything else? I appreciate you taking the time to share your energy with me and watch this. Um, I love you all very, very much. You have value. You are loved. I love you. Um, if you'd like to meet with me, I'll put my booking information below. I do 30-minute or 60-minute readings, and ultimately you get a copy of that reading as well. Who do we meet with? We meet with your spirit team. Traditionally, we call forward your higher self and your spirit guides, and they're the ones who give me the information to relay to you. It's not so open forum that you don't get to come with questions. I encourage people, come with questions, things that they're struggling with, things that they're seeking clarity on, and we'll attack this thing together. I love you again.